We're going to spend the next 40 minutes together, sharing some ideas, hopefully working a little bit together. I'm going to attempt to cover these three areas here: the importance of leadership on well-being. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things you can do to have a positive impact on other people's performance, behaviour, particularly if you're in a position of leadership where you're responsible for the performance of other people. Can I just have a show of hands if you're in that position? In any shape or form, leading, influencing other people, quite a number of you, okay? And certainly probably trying to advise other people who are doing that role, I imagine. And then finally, if we get time, a few strategies for helping you in your own well-being. We might even push some of those in as we go through the session. So what I'd like to do, in fact, you will be having odd conversations with people either side of you. So if you wouldn't mind just first of all shaking the hand of one person next to you and keep holding that hand. Do it down. Never keep holding the hand. Keep holding the hand. You will notice that one of you has your thumb firmly planted on top. This shows an attitude of dominance and control. And very quickly, on the count of three, listen up, on the count of three, shake the hand of the person sitting behind you. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Alright, just checking. Alright, so, yeah, we're going to have a bit of, I'd like to get you involved in some conversations, talking to each other, sharing ideas, views, etc. And so let's start off by making this personal. Okay? And what I'd like you to think about for a moment is, what is it like, in the context we're talking about leadership here, what is it like to be led by you? What is it like to be on the end of your leadership every day of the week? Your phone calls, your emails, your meetings, when things go wrong, when you're stressed, when somebody's let you down, when your boss is getting on your back. What is it like to be on the receiving end of you? It's a question I ask a lot of leaders, and it gets them thinking. They go, whoa. I mean, then my next question is, would you love to be led by somebody just like you? I know what some of you are thinking, obviously. Look at me, all right? I mean, you know, what is there not to like about me, all right? And some people, when I ask them that question, they shudder with the thought of it. Would I like to be led by someone just like me, who had my personality, my empathy, or lack of, all right? And particularly when you're under stress, what is it like to be in that experience? Would you choose yourself? I remember when I was about 7, 8, maybe sort of 10, 12 years old, it's a bit of a boy thing, this. If you're in the playground, you used to choose football teams. And anybody, the guys remember that, choosing football teams, right? And then you'd all kind of go when you pick 2 captains, and then you'd have 2 people choose the teams. Now, I was absolutely hopeless at football. I was always the guy standing there right at the end. All right, Martin, come and join our team, but just sit down, right? Now, you imagine this is a situation here. Here you are at work, and we're picking sides. And we part everyone on one side of the room, and we pick 2 captains out, and they're picking leaders. Where would you be in that order? So if you really start to ask that question and think about where would you sit, it really starts to get you to think, and I want you to make this personal. I want you to be thinking, how do these things apply to other people? If you've been to the same presentations I've been to today, I don't think we need any further convincing on the need for good well-being, good mental health, etc., etc. Right? We've had stats after stats after stats. I'm only going to share one stat with you, and the rest of it I'm really going to come from a space of experience, of having worked in this field for 25 odd years, developing people professionally, travelling the world, I think I worked out my colleague the other day. I've worked for about 25 years. We've spoken to about 15,000, I think we've had about 15,000 hours in front of audiences. So you learn one or two things about human behaviour and about people. And interestingly enough, not a lot of things change necessarily. Human beings remain the same. So I want to share, and I want to make sure you think about that from your experience. So what is that experience for you? Is it on the left? Is it on the right? Are you making people thrilled and excited? Are you the person they pick when they say, think of a fantastic leader? Are you the person they pick? Are you an example, or are you a warning by the way you act and the way you behave? Think about this image of dropping a stone into a pond. You know, are you a ripple that washes over and soothes the souls of the people that you lead, making them feel better every day? Or are you like a tsunami, crashing, whipping, and leaving you a complete wreck? All right. So, and somewhere in between the two, who's been on the end of a leader like that? All right. And all you want to do is get away from it. All right. So, I absolutely 100% believe for all of the well-being programs and how brilliant they are, it can all be trumped by a poor leader. Just like that. One single, you know, if you're coming to work each day and being led by somebody who is the cause of your stress, it doesn't matter how much well-being you've got in that business or in that organisation. So my belief is we really have to take this act of leadership really seriously and think about how we're showing up to other people. And that's what I share some thoughts about. And here's my little stat bit. I've worked with a company called Zengerfoden. Cat at the back actually is a client of mine, works with Wells Fargo upstairs. I asked the researcher there, Joe Foden, who's written several books, and I said to him, let's have a look at some of the markers for well-being. We chose these markers, and you can read these for yourself. These are all things that relate to a relationship with somebody, and they're all around balancing getting results of concern for others, giving honest feedback in a helpful way, is a role model, etc., etc. Truly concerned about developing others. And when you look at these indicators, and then you match them, we've done, you know, we've got 60,000 odd assessments on people worldwide. And when you look at the where they come out on our scale when we 360 them, the people at the 10th percentile, top 10 percentile, you can see the direct correlation between their employee engagement. And wherever we measure this, it's always the same. Not unsurprising, but there is a very direct relationship between those indicators and then how those people are coming out on their own employee engagement scores. All right? So there is a direct correlation between the two, and that is something we therefore can do something about. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what are some of those things that you can do that can have a positive impact on other people that you actually lead. Now, first of all, we think about the evolution of the brain. As I said, I've been doing this. I started the business in 1994. We started that business largely around the area of mindsets, long before well-being became a kind of a term that we were using. And we recognized that mindset was playing and making a massive differentiator in businesses, right? So we kind of developed some programs, some ideas around that. All the things I was being told 25 years ago is exactly the same today. I don't go into organisations and say, oh, we've got a group of super agile, you know, change-friendly human brains, and we can chuck any change at them and they absolutely love it. No, that doesn't happen, all right? So, whilst we've seen technology race along at a rapid speed, changing our lives in untold ways and even unthinkable ways when we think about the next 15 to 20 years, we've got this brain that's pretty much functioning in pretty much the same way. It's not really evolved that much, all right? Let's do a little test. If I've asked you just to stand up for me, and you think about, and I'd like you to just turn in and face the person. Obviously, you just in pairs if you can, and just have a quick look. at how they're dressed. Right? And what I'd like to do is notice how this person has dressed today. Just notice today. Right? Now I'd like to do it, notice what they're wearing, how they're wearing it. Rings on fingers, earrings, tied the hair, glasses, no glasses.
I feel like I'm facing the wall. Okay, this is it.
Right. Okay, that's it. Right, right, I've got my, excuse me. Alright, thank you. Right, I'm going to put, if you don't mind, I'm going to put a little crowd control technique in. Alright? Because it's always when you have this sort of situation, you have a number of people, you have to start shouting over the top of people, it's all a bit rude. So what I'm going to do is when I need your attention back, because I appreciate you getting very excited with each other there, the anticipation. I'm just going to raise my hand. If you see me raising my hand, this is cue for you to raise your hand. You all raise your hand and the room goes nice and quiet. The idea is you stop speaking as you raise your hand. If you can just try that, chat amongst yourselves. Beautiful. Thank you very much. It saves me having to keep shouting, all right? Shouting at you. Right. Okay, so you're facing the other way. What I'd like you to do, now they've had a look at you, I'd like you to change 3 things about yourself. 3 things. You're going to change, without them seeing, you're going to change 3 things. Okay? Change 3 things.
I can't take it off. It's stuck.
Fantastic. When you've made the changes, if you'd like to spin that round. Notice the changes. Thank you. It almost worked, right? I'm going to keep my hand up, still keep speaking. Right. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you, to create this change, took something off? We're going to show of hands, or changed something around. Either took something off or changed something around. Put your hand in the air. All right? For those of you that didn't do that, what did you do? Did anybody do anything different? Did anybody add anything?
Yes, I did.
How many people, if you added anything, put your hand in the air. All right, that is 3 people. All right, 4 people maybe, 4 people maximum. All right. Now, I would suggest to you that when we think about change, the cycle. Grab a seat, dress yourself. I would suggest to you that the psychological association that we have with change is generally those 2 things. It's removing something, it's not going to be there, it's not going to be as good, or something is going to be changed around. And that also, excuse me, is not going to be so good. We don't necessarily psychologically associate it with adding, oh, this is something extra. When a change is announced in your organisation, I don't know about you, but do you go home and say to your wife, husband, your partner, and say, guess what? What? There's change coming. Really? Wow. Well, what's the change going to be? That's the exciting thing. I don't actually know. Now that isn't typical, is it? Right? It's probably the complete opposite of that. Well, that's the point. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And suddenly, you see, deep psychologically, we're rooted as human beings, and we crave for certainty. We seek certainty. We're certainty-seeking missiles. We want certainty around us, but there is no certainty. So what are we doing? trying to get people feeling more comfortable with the idea of change all the time. Well, the change that is going on. So I was in this organisation the other day, and I was speaking to a group of managers, and one manager was saying, yes, I've got this sort of issue with change, and I said, well, how do you think we should deal with it? And he said, well, I think what one person suggested, what we need to do, we need to think about what's in it for me. We need to sell them on the idea of the change, and we can sell them the benefits. And I went, possibly. I mean, the problem is, with that strategy, and it is a good strategy and I understand it, what are you going to do in 3 months' time when there's more change? Surely, what we actually should be doing is actually helping people with becoming more agile around change itself. Interestingly, that exercise, I did a shortened version of that exercise, changed 3 things. I then get people to turn back, I make another 3 changes, and then a further 3 changes. I've got more time. And even after that, people carry on thinking about taking their jacket off, they're taking their trousers down, they're thinking of turning into a pervert, Martin, what's going on, all right? But it takes a long time for people to think, oh, I could change myself by adding something, right? It's a very different paradigm. So really what I think we should be doing as practitioners is equipping people and helping people with getting much more comfortable about the evolution of change. We have inbuilt threat responses, as you well know, some of you who study neuroscience, you will know there are inbuilt threat responses in our brain that when something is new or different, or we're getting feedback about something that's not correct, it's often out of proportion to the size of the event. When we tell somebody some good feedback, it doesn't have nearly the same impact. They can't help this primitive survival system that we've had. But we need to start helping people with it. And we need to accelerate that in order to help these people with this change. So that's a really important lesson I think we can help people with. I used the palm trees there, not just because it's a whippy tree, but palm trees have the ability literally to almost bend over flat in real storms. And what the scientists, we're doing a bit of research, and the scientists say when they actually come back up, they grow stronger for having bent over that far. And I think very much the same way, if you've been through a lot of change, if you've been subject to a lot of change, it actually somehow becomes easier for you. If you've been cocooned in a little world of constant consistency, it's quite frightening when it first comes along. And a lot of the companies I've worked with, where maybe some of the heavy unionised business, where they've had jobs for a very long time, it's really, really tough. And I think we should go around beating them up and saying, oh, you're a bit stuck in the mud, and you're a bit primitive, and la la la, and you're dinosaur thinking. That's not their fault. That's the way that they've been conditioned, that's the way they've been used to. I thought it was quite interesting this morning in an earlier presentation, I think in the main plenary, where they cited there was 5 companies, wasn't there, that was put up as examples of great well-being. And I'm sure it didn't come as a surprise to anybody that 4 of these companies were all tech companies, and they've all been created in the last 10 years. Wow, look at that. All right? And what was that? I think, oh, even Innocent Drinks, I think was the 5th one, and that's probably not that old either, all right? So not surprising we're citing those companies. Why? Because largely the population of those people is probably younger, and secondly, they've not known anything different, all right? They've been used to very agile working, so we shouldn't be surprised by that. When we think about this, what we're also trying to do, I think, is making the mistake of trying to get people trying to remove stress. And stress is part of work. You cannot avoid it. And stress and pressure are often interlinked. There is a difference between stress and pressure. Pressure for me is something when everything counts. When you're making a key presentation, you're likely to get judged on the outcome. The outcome is like super important, you're likely to be evaluated. Stress, however, is just stuff that happens every day. You get stressed about traffic, you get stressed about not having enough time, not enough resources, not enough money. That's just stuff. And rather than trying to remove it, I think what we actually, the key to this is to make sure that we've got the proper recovery time. You know, if anyone here goes to the gym or you train hard, you will know the criticality of actually having recovery time. That is actually where your muscles grow, they repair themselves to get fit to do another session again. So if we're at work and we're putting people under a lot of pressure, stress, we need, it's so vital to have that recovery time in order for those for the people to be able to bring themselves to actually be able to cope with the next level of work. So this is, to me, why it is so important. Pushing ourselves too hard and then not actually having any recovery time generally results in illness. And I'm sure you have experienced the same as me, where you've been working really, really hard. You've been skipping the gym, you've been doing all the things you should be doing. You go on holiday, you relax, and you get a sore throat, you get a cold. Anybody been there before? Your body is absolutely pumping with cortisol. You know that is an immune system suppressant. There's too much adrenaline in the system. That adrenaline subsides, and suddenly, boom, you get ill. All right? No surprise, really, when we think about it. Which is why recovery time is really important to the productivity. So slowing down to go faster is really what we should be looking to do. These kind of, particularly in the city here, go, 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 go. And not actually necessarily being an example. I think as a leader, we need to be an example to others. It's interesting, isn't it? The very thing that actually is going to cause people the well-being in itself, the activities, going home on time, taking rest, taking breaks, having perhaps a little bit of time out, taking your vacation when you should be taking it, taking your holiday when you should be taking it, are the very things, for some people, are the cause of stress. Ironically. All right? I remember recently I was going to coach this very senior executive in a very big company, which I'll remain nameless, but you would know the company instantly. Very senior guy there. I'm walking into the building. I've never met this chap before. I've got his 360 in my bag, all right? And I've obviously read that. Coming into the building, and there's a lady walking out. I would say she's probably about 26, 27, something like that. As she's walking out, I clocked at 6:30. As she's walking out, he remarks to her, he says, "Oh, hi Helen, thanks for popping in." Chuckle, 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 all right? And I said, I sort of walked down the corridor, and he said, "Oh yeah, you've got to keep them." She sort of awkwardly laughed and went off out the door. And as we're walking up the corridor, you've got to keep these people on their toes. And I'm thinking, let's see. So we sit down, we have a little conversation. I said, a little bit later in the conversation, how do you think, tell me a little bit about Helen, by the way. Is she hard working? Does she get early in the morning? Oh yeah, she's she's a fantastic EA, she's been here 7 years, works really hard. And I said, how do you think she's feeling? Oh, I was just having a laugh with her. I said, no, I don't think so. Now, 10 minutes later, I'm opening up his 360, and I think all is becoming very clear, all right? And, if you've ever watched a tree falling, watch a tree falling, how it falls very, very slowly, and then it gathers pace, and then boom, it hits the ground and bounces up a few times. That was the experience I had with this guy, all right? He suddenly had his day of reckoning and realised these little flippant comments he's making, the very things that actually is going to cause his staff to feel well, he's actually not setting a great example. So what might those activities be? What activities do you think help create well-being that people might feel guilty of? What do you think? What might they be? Give me some simple examples.
Email after hours.
Sorry?
Emails.
Email after hours. It's a fantastic example. What does it mean if your boss is sending you an email at 10 o'clock with a kind of urgency about it? What does that do to you? Particularly if you're a more junior person.
Panic.
There's a set of panic coming. If you're in any way, your performance is a little bit up and down at that time, you're now in real panic. Whatever that happens at the weekend? Right? A manager was telling me the other day, he likes to do his work very late at night, and he keeps all his emails in his box and sends them off first thing in the morning. It's not to actually frighten people. Please, what you going to say?
So you feel you have to respond.
You feel like you have to respond. We're in the world of instant everything, aren't we? Instant messaging. We're having this conversation the other day about relationship building and communication and the use of SMS. If you send an SMS to somebody, we tend to relate that to being in a personal community, and generally it's instant. All right. So if we start using SMS, can you imagine what that's going to do to people? It's like your life is completely full. You can't even step out of the building without it being there. All right. And this fills people with huge amounts of stress. And so we have a responsibility, a duty of care to look after people and help them put their self-care before the business on some occasions. Well, most occasions, in fact. All right? So we have to think about what those behaviours are. Any other examples? What about being on... Sorry, go on, Fred.
Not having lunch or eating lunch at a desk.
Yeah, not eating lunch at the desk. Right, yeah. There's a sense of, I feel I need to be seen to be doing the right thing. It's like the classic thing about the, the story about the guy who brings two jackets in. All right? He has a jacket he wears home, he has a jacket he leaves on the back of the chair. Just to indicate to his boss he's still there, all right? And I've had lots of people tell me, well, I can't leave the office until my boss goes. I'm just literally looking, waiting for her. Has she gone yet? Oh, she's gone now, now I can go. All right? Imagine that. It's not right, is it? All right? It's definitely not right. But it's very, very true. Back to what I said earlier, for all the wellness programs, for all the bean bags and football tables and programs you have and free fruit, all right? If your leader doesn't represent these things, it trumps everything. It really does make a difference, all right? The other quick thing I just want to mention, I'm not getting too deep here, but when we lead with all of ourselves. And one of the things I found quite interesting in helping leaders really understand why they're doing what they're doing. Because often they don't appreciate the unconscious activity that is really going on. So for instance, someone might say, oh, I'm working late. Oh, why are you working so late? Why do you work so late? Oh, because I've got a real hard work ethic. Are you sure about that? Is that why you're really doing it? Are you really doing that? Or is there some connection to some parental link to always being seen to be first and always being, like I have to be perfect at everything? Where's that coming from? Are you sure you're doing that consciously for the right reasons? Or is there some unconscious activity that is creating that behaviour? And it's a very interesting line of inquiry to go down with leaders. If you do any leadership development, it's definitely worth thinking about this and thinking about why do people actually do what they're doing. Because the reason they think they're doing it is not actually the reason they're doing it. And when they suddenly become aware of this unconscious influence, so they can change it. So when you lead consciously, but there's a big part of you unconsciously is driving those behaviours. So you have to pay attention to the unconscious behaviour that is driving the conscious behaviour. And then suddenly you end up with a difference. And it's quite a revelation, and you can imagine on some leadership courses, people get a bit teary when they make this connection. And they think, geez, I've been doing this, I can't believe I've been doing this for myself and to other people. Maybe I need to stop doing it. Maybe I don't need to do that any longer. All right, so think a little bit about that. Just very couple of seconds on this. This whole notion of work-life balance. First of all, there is no such thing. It just, I don't know, has anybody got their life perfectly in balance like that? Look at that, perfect, I'm just perfect. I mean, who would say work is like this? Tips has the favour. Just pretty much everybody. All right. So one thing, there is no such thing. So I prefer to describe it as work-life integration. How are you integrating work and life together? Now, thankfully, some organisations are wising up a little bit more to this, with a lot more home working, and it's not sort of frowned on as being a ridiculous thing anymore, and just a way to kind of get a few hours off here and there. But I think that idea of I much prefer, personally, have always done, I'm much more concerned about outcomes than hours. I'm much more concerned about quality, consistency, following the values, and reaching the outcomes of the business, rather than actually how long you're in the office. Travelling to countries like Norway will teach us all a few lessons. At 5:30, 6 o'clock in Norway, there is a massive exodus from the building. If you were to electronically track email, there is a massive dip in email between 5:30 and 9 o'clock, and then it goes back up at 9 o'clock. What people are doing is they're going home and they're spending time with their families, vital time, particularly with young kids, and then they're going back in and fixing their email or whatever they need to do later on, if they so choose. So I think this idea, we're gradually getting there, but we've still got a long way to go, because there's this sort of energy around, should I not be there, all right? A lot of the things I tell you, by the way, and I think there's sort of a personal note here, I think what has driven me into this type of role is I had some experiences of mental health very close to home. Firstly, I lost my father to mental health. I was about 8 years old. I don't remember much about it, other than being taken to a hospital. And in those days, you imagine 40 odd years ago, I'm in my 50s now, in those days, it was, if you think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, have you seen that film? All right. And the sort of pictures and the images, that's the images I've got in my head from back visiting him. We didn't know how to treat people in those days. My son, very sad, my brother, very sadly, I think genetically had some issues, and sadly he died when he was 21, or drug-related thing, but it was definitely mental illness related. And would you believe, right on my own doorstep, my 20-year-old, or my now 24-year-old son also has some mental health challenges we've had to work through. So it's been very, very close to me, and maybe part of the reason I actually even do this work in the first place, realising what a difference it can make if we reach out and we help these people. And particularly for James, when we talk about the sort of the whole stigma, I remember just a little anecdote here. He was going to I couldn't get him to along to see a doctor. When he finally did get along to see a doctor, the doctor's sitting there and he's tapping away on the keyboard whilst he's speaking. It completely freaked him out. It took me a year to get him to go back again, because he thought everything he's been saying is going to be recorded, and I'm never going to go back to it. I'm not going to have this on my record anywhere. All right. So it didn't actually help him at all. All right. I'm telling you that now because I'm going to come back to something in a few minutes. I'm just going to show you this image. I'm not going to go into any detail, and you probably don't need me to go into a huge amount of detail, but our name of our business, Natural Direction, was built upon the premise that people do their best work when they're playing to their natural strengths. If there's one thing you can do to raise people's self-esteem, is to focus, is to get them to spend more time doing the things they're great at, and not beating them up for not doing things they're not great at. It really, if I think about my own son, when he was 5 years, 6 years old, going to open evenings, James, oh yeah, fantastic, super excited, very sociable, absolutely hopeless at maths, very creative, hopeless at maths. 3 years later, same story. 16 years old, same story. He was hopeless at maths when he was 5, he was pretty hopeless at maths when he was 24. The things he was great at 5, he's absolutely amazing at 24. All right? We shouldn't be surprised by that. So let's make sure we celebrate what people are great at and have this attitude of gratitude towards what somebody can bring as opposed to what they can't bring. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to spend the last few minutes, I want to do a quick experiment with you, and it involves us kind of moving the chairs. And when I walked in this room this morning, I thought, oh, a bit limited on space. I like a bit of interactivity. So I'm just going to show you one last thing, and then I'm going to ask you to move the chairs. So we'll do one last activity in the last 5 minutes. Over the years, I have asked the question over and over again, why is this person happier? Why is they more motivated? Why are they more inspired? Why are they willing to go the extra mile? Where's their confidence coming from? And I'm contrasting that with people who are the opposite. And I've found there are 7 things that the happiest, most motivated, inspired people I meet are incredibly good at doing. And I've listed them up here. I don't want to create a big, long spiel about this, but we, over the years, use this framework to help organisations build their resilience. And the first one is everything I've been talking about, learning and change. With these are what I call 7 gifts. Gifts because they're within our gift of control, but often we give them away. We are the most innovative. When were you most innovative? Do you know what age it is? Do you remember being 6 and 7? We had multiple meanings for multiple things, multiple names for multiple things. And then the school teaches us to have one right answer for every single question. And then they leave school and they come into work and we want people to be innovative. And we want them to think, we want them to have different ideas. Ooh, all right? I remember my son going for his interview, his first interview, and the interviewer said to him, Joshua, what would you do if a colleague did X, Y, Z? And Josh, being very logical, said, well, I don't know, because I've never been in that situation. How am I supposed to know the answer to that, all right? It's this sort of very sort of linear focus, used to providing one right answer, but we are mini, creative, innovative little brains, and it's still within us today. We've just suffocated the life out of them. It's still there. So the ability to control your emotions, understanding the mind-body link, there's tons of stuff you can do around that. I'm not going to go into them now. Your belief systems, I think, is the most powerful thing, helping people understand that their legacy belief systems, their inherited belief systems, conditioned belief systems are actually not necessarily helping them. When you unravel those and you try and get people thinking about new beliefs, it's amazing how much more power they have. Having a clear brand, a view of who you are and what you're not. Know yourself, be able to know yourself, accept yourself, and be yourself are three big things I always talk to my clients about. Know who you are, know what you're not, accept it, and then you can truly be yourself. And then have some sort of vision that pulls you into the future, something you're excited about, and if the current organisation is going to help you get there, then fantastic. That's beautiful alignment, okay, right there. All right. So there are some things that I think we can do. What I'd like you to do, if I could ask you just to stand up, and I'd like you to sort of put the chairs to one side, and just stack them to the side, so you have a bit of space in the room. Reasonably quick thing, a little bit of squeeze here. Right, one last thing. I'm going to hand you a card. It's very, very important. Keep the card like this. So keep the card, okay? So the owner and Pep here have a card as well. Keep it face down. It's very, very important you do not see the card. Very important you do not see the card. We've got some more? We've got some more, okay? Thank you. Over here. One there, one there. One there, one there, one there. Very important. Keep the card face down. Keep it face down. Everyone else got one? Yeah. There we go. Keep it face down, keep it face down. Everyone else got one? Yes? All got one? Yes? Yes? Fantastic. Right. Okay. So, in a minute, I'm going to ask you, not yet, I'm going to ask you to hold the card in front of you like this. Not yet. I'm going to hold it in front of you. And what I want you to do is I want you to greet people based on the number, all right? So, if it's a king or a queen, all right, and I was greeting you, if it's an ace, so ace is low, ace or two, you're an ace or two, I'm going to go like this. And if it's a five, we're going to sort of English greeting. Up, chap. And then move on, all right? Now, some of you will find this very difficult. I don't want to be nasty to people. I find it very hard, right? It's just a game. It's just a game. You're not doing any harm to anybody. It's just a game. But you've got to be consistent in the way you greet people. You want to meet and greet as many people as you can. Ready and go. Hold the card in front of them. In your left hand, hold it in front of you like that. Shake them right. Here, ace or two, fives here, kings and queens over there. Keep the card in front of you still. Go stand where you think you are. So aces and twos, fives, kings, queens. Alright? Alright, and you can pretty much see there's no kings or queens here, despite the fact you've got, I know, good, okay. And no aces over there. Good. Okay. So you can pretty much see there. How long did that take? 2 or 3 minutes. Basically what you've got here is a representation of most organisations. Actively disengaged people. Highly engaged people confused. True? And that took a few minutes. If you look at your card, you'll see there, no matter how many times I do this, it's very, very consistent, right? So, can you see that we have a direct responsibility for people? We are impacting people, and this just takes a few seconds. With a little acts of leadership every single day is what creates someone's wellness. And we, as a leader, have a direct contribution to that. If I could just take 60 more seconds to show you, I asked my son, James, and I said to him, I'm coming to this thing. I didn't give him any information. I said, I'm going to do a talk on something around mental health. Here's a person who's suffered with it for some time. He's now got it under control, thankfully. He was in a very, very bad place a few years ago. And I said to you, he's an English student, so I said, could you write me a short poem? Now, bearing in mind I didn't give him any direction at all, this is what he came up with. In amongst the cattle. In amongst the cattle I perform my daily graze, third eye upon the farmer who controls my monthly pay. 1,000,000 voices in my head whose noise is seldom heard. I wait till dark to think them through, away from all the herd. Just like a pawn I sleep and wake, by day, by noiseless day, third eye upon the farmer who controls my monthly pay. Now I thought about that and I thought, well, you can see what he's going through here, can't you? He's controlling, he's dealing with it, he's just on the edge, he's coming home, and in the quiet of the night, he processes it, gets it out of the way, gets up for the next day. And I thought, well, you know, you are that farmer, and someone's got their eye on you, so be aware of how you're showing up to those people, all right?